Three, two, one. Now we wait for the map to update, and it's going to be. Oh, no. What is this? Alright, howdy boyos, welcome back. This is the third and final part in the Call of War series. I definitely jump into the game and make some more videos here in the future, mainly because this is not going to be the episode that concludes everything. This is going to be an episode that shows you lots of combat. It's going to have rockets in it, nuclear strikes, nuclear bombers, betrayal, and a lot of backstabbing, which I did talk about in my earlier video. If you haven't been keeping up, this was a 100-player session that I started a few weeks ago with a lot of you guys, the viewers, and now there's about 20 to 25 players left alive. This is going to be a sort of recap of what happened, and I can definitely see there has to be at least one more video at the very end of this game, which could be another couple of weeks until a faction or a player wins, because there is so much land left to be grabbed. Let's get into the game. Don't forget, by the way, the link in the description is still valid, giving you a bunch of premium time and an awesome amount of premium goodies if you sign up with that link in the description. Archangelisk had joined our coalition, and our next goal between Ark and myself was Sweden and Norway, which was mostly captured by Sweden and Finland. The idea was to start off with some ballistic missile strikes on faraway airfields we couldn't necessarily get to right away, and that way we would hopefully cripple their air force and allow us to get entrance to the country without having to fight over the airspace with their fighters. Now, I did accidentally launch 2 missiles there at the same target. That was not supposed to happen, and I was really angry at myself because those missiles are pretty damn expensive. Okay, so you're joining us a little bit later. The missiles are about a minute or so out, at least the closest one is about a minute or so out. We have launched paratrooper attacks on southern Sweden and Norway, and a naval invasion going from Copenhagen to Malmö is almost complete. The defenses in the south of Sweden were very light, so our units on the boats were able to make it across fairly easily. Here we have a rocket battery, actually 2 of them accidentally, about to hit Fasa. They are going to aim for the infrastructure, which would then mean, hopefully, with a big-ass boom that would no longer be able to at least launch planes. We even destroyed a few buildings in that area, which meant that they can no longer build certain units, and they can definitely not take off with any fighters or aircraft until they repaired their runway. As you can see, the invasion of Scandinavia went kind of very good, actually. A few strongholds remain mostly here in northern Sweden, where both Finnish and Swedish forces had retreated to the mountains and sort of tried this final stand together. Luckily, I had a lot of planes and artillery to bombard them from afar. It still was a very costly battle. One of my friends who had played Call of War before said that the game is awesome, but that everyone who plays suddenly is like that prison experiment, if you guys have ever heard about that, where people were given the authority over other people in an experiment, and they were horrible people. And I've already found this out myself. Backstabbing and being really sort of rude to people, lying to them, is very easy in this game, and in the end, everybody wants to win. So my apologies to Ark. We had to usurp him between Ural, myself, and Volga, and we then attacked his former coalition friends in Kazakhstan and Ukraine. Ukraine actually was the worst of all 3, because we did a 3-prong invasion between Romania, myself as Poland, and Volga, and I used a bunch of railway guns to attack Fortress Kiev, and it just ended up in a bloodbath. A day or 2 later, all the territory in Europe and the majority of the territory in Western Russia now belonged to the coalition that we were all a part of, the GDI, yes, named after the GDI. However, an enemy was popping up in Eastern Russia. The West and East Yakutians had been messaging us and basically been very hostile. The Ma clique down to the south, which had taken over a large part of the map and at one point had over 500 territories, was now reduced to just a few dozen. I started researching nukes because I realized it was going to be a very powerful weapon, as you can see. I was getting there. I just needed a few more things researched to get the awesome nuclear rocket. But our spies had told us that in the capital of East Yakutskia, called Yakutsk, a nuclear bomber was being built. So I was trying to rush in a very sort of market garden-esque scenario, though without the paratroopers. Our goal was to rush to the Yakutsk capital and stop them from actually finishing this nuclear bomber. So I had 2 armored car units rushing straight past West Yakutia's capital, which was at that point well defended. My goal was to run straight into the capital and stop that nuclear bomber from being built. With some light losses, we managed to actually take over the capital, stop the nuclear bomber from being made, and now East Yakutia was without a capital, and his idea was to retreat to North America where he had some lands. Okay, so a new update, and this will probably be one of the last updates in this video. It is May 12th. The situation is as follows. Europe is still pretty much under our control. Scrolling over to Asia, you can see a lot of green and yellow. Now, yellow are my lands. I don't really like this sort of border gore, which is what it referred to as by other people in the game, because, you know, my border is over here. Now I have random lands over here. But yeah, a lot of territory here in East and West Yakutia, and a little bit down here from the Ma Clique are now mine. We have North Ural and Volga, who have a huge amount of land, and especially Volga has just huge amounts of land. Ma Clique has basically been eliminated, which used to be one of the stronger nations, if not the strongest, in the game. Right now, West Yakutia is almost done. They have maybe about 10 to 12 provinces left, and then they are going to be overrun relatively soon by Ural, part of our coalition. East Yakutia is running north. It had a tiny corridor, almost like the Fulda Gap, and they were trying to run away here towards a few lands that he has in Alaska, in North America. So we are not really capable of cutting them off, mainly because we don't have the forces over here right now. So I think about 20 or so units actually made it, at least towards the Bering Sea, and they probably crossed into Alaska by now. With West Yakutia being almost done, security can kind of come back here. Ural will probably push across into North America. Then there's a few holdings here, Japan and Khabarovsk. They are necessarily not in the best position, and we'll deal with them at a future point. So we thought all was well. However, not really. Sumatra decided to start invading India, which was Volga and Romania's territory, and not without a reason. The main reason being that we were actually attacked by the North African or African coalition. They invaded parts here of southern Italy. They invaded Malta. They are obviously looking here towards getting Heraklion. Have already been bombing it constantly. And they gained a little bit of ground here near Israel and Palestine, but not very much. And we've been dealing with their forces by just smashing them with artillery planes and a vast majority of units. Now, Volga has a lot of ships, so does Italy. However, 1 or 2 of the nations in the African coalition have top-tier battleships. They are very hard to get rid of. They are very good against basically any unit besides submarines. They do tons of damage to land units, and as you can see, 32 damage to ships is absolutely devastating. But thanks to Italy's submarines and Volga's submarines and carriers, they have been able to keep the Mediterranean relatively okay. There's definitely not been a decisive victory yet for either faction. Italy and the North African coalition have been fighting here, the Strait of Gibraltar, though nobody has really been victorious. There's definitely artillery here. As you can see, there's actually been some artillery strikes in Tangiers, but there hasn't been a decisive winner. If you thought that was it, not really. Down in South Africa, the South American coalition has actually been invading. We've been messaging back and forth. South America started invading South Africa, so Africa now has to sort of divvy their forces between the north, the Mediterranean, and over here more in the south. There's not been any invasions in South America from Africa, though I'm sure they are going to happen at some point. Mexico, or what is left of Mexico, which, by the way, is a little bit larger than just Mexico at this point, but the one Mexican player who's left has quite a bit of territory here in the USA. As you can see, it stretches all the way from the tippy top here of South America all the way to the Canadian border. He is currently fighting over California, having the little till down here, and working his way up to, as you can see, Los Angeles. And Las Vegas is not very far off from being in his control. If I zoom out a lot, you can see that this has basically turned into more or less a world war. Currently, Europe and Asia are under our control. We are fighting Africa. We have also been sort of involuntarily been attacked by Sumatra. Now, Australia isn't really Australia anymore. Yes, there's quite a few lands here that are still Australian. However, Turkey and Syria have had a presence here for a while. Ever since we basically pushed them out of Europe, they got some lands over here in East Yakutia, and they then went on to a little trip in a boat, and they have been capturing Australia, I believe Hawaii. All these islands are also Turkish. So these are technically our enemies, but for right now, they said, hey, do you guys want to have a ceasefire? And we said, yes, we'll have a ceasefire for right now. So technically, we're sort of less still at war with these guys, or we could be going to war any moment, realistically speaking. South America obviously is invading Africa, which is part of the World War. And in North America, we've already had messages that certain factions here in North America may be thinking about joining the war over in Europe, because right now we are the most strongest coalition by far. We have almost double the provinces of the second largest coalition, and we have also basically double their score. We are right now, I suppose, sort of like the Allies during World War II, with Africa being the Axis, Sumatra playing as Japan, Africa playing as the Germans and the Italians, but we're playing as the Allies. That means that the communists, or the Soviets, by the way, the Canadians over here call themselves the commu-anarchists. They are communists in North America. Yeah, the game goes kind of crazy sometimes. They seem to be perhaps interested in invading us. So we don't really have a lot over here right now. Though when I'm making this video and uploading it, by the time this comes up on YouTube, trust me, I will have to have reinforced the borders here quite a lot. But you can see this is going crazy. And you thought that was crazy, wait till you see this. We have a nuclear missile, we have a nuclear bomber over here in Istanbul, and we have another nuclear bomber over here near Sumatra, because they have to be dealt with. You are joining us here in the last about 45 seconds of the bombing of Cairo. We have the 14th Atomic Bomber Squadron, a North American B-45 Tornado moving in with the name Bouncing Betty. Cairo is about to turn into a crater of destruction. 15 seconds. Dude, I'm like a little bit excited right now. T minus 10, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now we wait for the map to update, and it's going to be... Oh no! What is this? I'm pretty sure everybody gets this message when they log into the game. So everybody's gonna know. Everybody's gonna know Poland attacked Sudan with a nuke. Oh man. Alright, well that was only the first one. I'm sure there'll be some more to come.